Hello and welcome back to our third session of today's Training Industry Leader Talk, Measuring Learning Impact, sponsored by Biz Library, Litmos, SweetRush, and Whatfix. So again, I'm Liz Spade, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. So before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. So throughout today's session specifically, feel free to use this chat window to interact with our speaker with any comments. And as for questions, please submit all those questions to the Q&A section on your toolbar below. For this session, we will be addressing all comments and questions at the end of the program during our Q&A section. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us to the link with the on-demand sessions. If this is your first event with us, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to help your role in L&D, like live events through like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, our podcast, and our membership. So visit us to learn more. And we would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media. So please follow us on your favorite platforms and let's continue the conversation. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker for this session. Dharshan is a seasoned product marketing leader and a go-to marketing strategist with a proven track record in launching early-stage enterprise SaaS products across various industries. As the Associate Director of Product Marketing at Whatfix, he is currently focusing on the L&D and HR tech space, exploring how evolving technology enables enterprise to digitalize their workspace and enhance employee learning and productivity. And with that, take it away, Dharshan.
All right. Thank you, Liz. I hope my audio is all right. I'm just going to pull up my screen in a moment. Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the session on scaling digital skills with experiential learning. I hope it's been a productive day for all of you. I'm sure there's been some rich insights shared over the last couple of sessions as well. I'm going to try to keep up with that. That was a great introduction, Liz. Thank you so much for that. Now, I've been in, this is leader talk, right? So I'm not going to claim I'm a leader in the L&D space by any stretch of the imagination. But what I have been doing, at least for close to 10 years and more, is that working very closely with L&D leaders and practitioners such as yourself in the audience today, especially in the realm of technology, learning and training, right? And how to leverage technology to solve key problems in the area of learning by doing and learning in the flow of work. And I did see learning in the flow of work is one of the previous topics today as well. And that's what I'd like to share some of those insights today with this audience. And I represent this company called Whatfix. Whatfix is a product company that offers a suite of solutions that help enterprises optimize their returns from the investments that they make in technology, especially in terms of empowering the end users of technology to get more out of it. And training has a lot to do with it. Training before they start using certain technology and reinforcing that knowledge in the flow of work in terms of real-time capabilities. So that's what Whatfix does. We've been working with training industry for a while now. We've done a ton of these presentations where we've gotten to interact with L&D leaders and practitioners such as yourself, and we value this relationship a lot. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about over the next 35 minutes before we, of course, open the floor for questions? The theme of today's event was really about measuring the impact of learning. Of course, we're going to be talking about that, but I did take the liberty to expand that a little bit, where I wanted to talk about, like I said, especially in the area of digital learning, right? Application training, software training. So we'll talk about how there's been a surge of enterprise software that employees and end users alike are expected to interact with and execute processes in to get daily work done. Then we'll talk about how that is posing new challenges to the L&D function. And considering the day and age that we're in, what are some of the things you could consider in devising an effective learning strategy, especially while powering digital transformation, right? And then we'll talk about a little bit about the solution itself, what we recommend and what are the tools that we offer in terms of training, adoption, and measurement, of course. And then, of course, we'll take questions from the audience. And like Liz suggested, please feel free to drop in your questions in chat. We've assigned some time at the end. We'll take as many questions as we can. Those that we cannot, we'll, of course, follow up over email. All right. So I'm sure a lot of you are from large enterprise and even some of the smaller companies. Over the last 10, 15 years, there's been an explosion of software applications, right? Digital transformation has been one of the key macro phenomenon over the last decade and a half, or even 2 decades for that matter. What's happened is we've been sifting through a lot of research in this space, and there's some interesting numbers there to claim that as of today in enterprises, on an average, any employee is using at least 14 applications, 14 different applications on a daily basis to get their work done. And this could be in any function, right? Sales, procurement, supply chain, accounting. And they are switching between applications at least 1,200 times a day. There's research from Asana that supports this. Essentially means that, of course, you're introducing new software to bring in more efficiency to your processes and making your users a lot more productive. But what this also means is that there's so many more applications that I, as an employee, is expected to use today. I represent a company. Whatfix has I think we're about less than 1,000 people as of today. And I know for a fact that in total, there's at least 100 internal software applications that we use across functions. I can only imagine how many that can be in larger enterprises, right? I know Gartner has research that suggests that on an average, large enterprises use 300 plus applications to get work done. So there's clearly been a ton of investments into technology, which has resulted in such a surge of software that employees are expected to use and make the best out of to be more efficient and productive, right? The other macro trend, of course, we are well away from the pandemic, but what's the one trend that we see is there's still a lot of distributed workforces in companies, and a good bunch of companies is still fully remote. I know a lot of them are back to their offices, but most companies still follow a hybrid workforce now, which comes with its own, of course, there's the balance, but it comes with its own challenges in terms of engaging with your workforces, making training more accessible to them, information discovery and support, and gathering feedback also. And this also affects how you would measure the impact of your learning programs and gather continuous feedback when you have a distributed workforce. So that also contributes to how the priorities have evolved for learning and development functions. Of course, there's the economic outlook, because there's a lot more focus right now on productivity and cost efficiency. There's research that suggests that more than half of the L&D professionals that were interacted with said that the workload has increased. This essentially means that leadership is telling L&D that, look, you're not going to get a lot more money, but we expect you to do more with less, right? And this could mean you can't invest a lot more in technology that you would like to. This would mean that you're now required to focus a lot more on upskilling and reskilling your existing workforces. So these are some of the macro trends that I want to set it up with before we talk about further things. Now, of course, one of the key challenges that all of this leads to is that how do you measure the effectiveness of your learning programs? And also, how do you make sure that learning is actually translating into performance, especially in today's digital age, right? That's a key challenge that we're well aware of. Right, before we move any further, we do want to launch a quick poll just to get a pulse of the audience. Thanks, Liz, for that. So, of course, I've done a lot of secondary research. We've spoken to a lot of customers to talk about and to understand what are their priorities. But what are your top priorities in 2025? Is it upskilling and reskilling, or is it about improving learner engagement? Because we see that as a top of mind problem. We have some great training programs, but people look at it as a checkbox that need to be checked because they have other priorities. So how do you engage learners better? Is it about AI? Oh, that was so I already see the results here. Thanks for that. There's a pretty even distribution there. Maybe that means that we've done a good job of providing you those options. But I do see that close to half of the audience here, the top of mind problem is demonstrating ROI on L&D investments. I think that's consistent with the theme of today's webinar. All right, thanks for that. That sets this up very nicely. I'm going to go ahead. All right. So, like I said, I did want to talk about all of this in the context of digital transformation. So the claim that I want to put out there is that digital transformation is about talent and not technology. Of course, there's been a ton of investments, like we just saw, into technology, but somewhere I do believe that people have been left to play catch up, right? Because you're great at investing so much in technology, you have all of these one-time training programs, but are you really enabling and empowering the humans, the end users of this technology, to actually get the most out of this, right? So there is a skill gap that is emerging between the technology itself, the software application itself, and the people who are expected to use it, right? And of course, you have some great training programs. You have different modalities of training. You have continuous learning programs, but how do you actually measure the impact, and how do you continuously optimize these programs? That's one of the newest challenges for L&D. And of course, like we saw, the need for efficiency. You may not have, a lot of us may not have the luxury of budgets to invest in technology and people for that matter. You might have to be extremely smart with the resources at your disposal to make your training programs more effective and measure how they actually translate to performance. Right. So like I said, we've been looking at a lot of research in this space, and a couple of interesting numbers that got thrown up were that 82% of the leaders that we spoke to, when I say we, IDC spoke to, talked about a lack of IT skills actually delaying their digital transformation by up to 10 months. Now, that actually means a lot of cost, a lot of drop in revenue, a lot of delay in people actually being productive. It has real outcomes in terms of affecting revenue, cost, and risk for enterprises, right? So, and also a supporting stat to this is that while IT spending itself has seen an upward trend over the last few years, companies are spending more and more money in new technologies with the right intentions, of course. The investments in training people that are expected to use this technology are actually reducing. So that's a worrying trend. And this is not to say that the more money you put in, the better your results are, but it's actually there's a direct correlation there, right? So we are spending a lot more money in the applications, technologies, but we're spending less and less money in actually empowering the people who are actually going to be using this technology to get work done. So, and this is not to refute the claim that there's no need for learning and training anymore. Of course, but it's actually the opposite. The need for learning and training is stronger than ever, right? And why? Because of course, like I said, there's so many more software systems, and the thing about SaaS applications, the good thing is that they're continuously getting upgraded, they're continuously involving, introducing new features. But the downside to that also is there's so much that you need to keep up with right now. Your training programs, maintaining your content, ensuring that your training is keeping up pace with how the technology is evolving. That is a challenge to grapple with. Of course, these applications come with very unique and they solve for very complex problems, right? Some of the ERP applications, if you've seen them, uh, they help execute complex supply chain processes. And these workflows are really complex and they need very deep and very hands-on training for these employees. And like I mentioned, there's continuous innovation, there's continuous feature upgrades and new things that are coming up that you need to keep up with. You can't, just like it was 20 years back, you can't just build a training program and let it be for 6 months even. You need to stay on your feet. And the big problem that we at Whatfix try to solve for most of our customers is it's not that knowledge doesn't exist, right? You've done a ton of work in building these knowledge repositories, but it may exist in silos within your enterprise. If I was a learner, if I was a user in my working environment, which could be a software application that I'm sitting in, it could be Salesforce, it could be SAP, it could be Oracle, or it could be any custom homegrown application. But the knowledge that I require to get my work done within Salesforce lies somewhere else. It could be a knowledge repository that you have, or I might have to raise a support ticket to someone over email or any support software. I more often than not, I'm not getting that just in moment guidance or information discovery. So that's another key problem that we see among the folks that we talk. Right. I'm sure you would all agree that today there is a definite shift from passive consumption, as we call it, to on-demand consumption. Right. I'm sure all of you're using at least one of these apps, if not all of them. Right. If I want to go somewhere, Uber is right there. I'm just going to pick up my phone. With a few clicks, I'm able to book an Uber and I can get somewhere. I feel like watching something, I fire up Netflix, and there's recommendations there based on what I've already watched. It's so easy to just choose what I like and just start watching. And it's the same with Alexa. I need information, I need news, I need weather updates. I just ask Alexa and it is right there. We don't like to wait for anything anymore. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is it's a different conversation. It's a much more deeper and philosophical conversation, which I do not want to get into right now. I don't think anyone wants to. But I think we can all agree that we don't have to, like it or not, we don't have to wait for things anymore. And that applies to learning as well. Now, people's expectations have evolved in learning also, in the workplace as well, right? It cannot be passive, go to this knowledge base and read through this ton of PDF documents or watch these videos, remember what you've learned, come back into your work environment and apply. It cannot be like that anymore. You can't have that disconnect anymore because people want information discovery and knowledge delivery to be instant, to be contextual to their role, and to be very experiential. I don't think any of us can disagree with that. Just looking at the time to make sure I'm not staying within that. So yeah, quickly focus on upskilling and reskilling is to summarize that how do you implement a continuous learning mechanism, and measuring impact plays a key role here. How do you make sure that knowledge retention is there and people do not forget what they learn after like a one-time classroom program and then go away and forget about what they have learned? How do you make sure reinforcement is there? And how do you leverage technology to do all of this, right? How do you make your learning experiential, and how do you make information discovery immediate and instant within their working environments? Because if you are if you are pulling your learners away from the work environment to deliver knowledge, I think you're already affecting their momentum. Productivity is getting impacted, right? And all of you know the 70-20-10 model. We love this framework. We talk about this a lot with our customers, with our partners in presentations such as these. I love this framework. And one of these customers I was talking to the other day, he is a veteran in the L&D community, and he did point out that, hey, while this framework is great, some of these numbers might have changed right now. I'm yet to go back and do a little bit more digging there. But yes, 70% of knowledge acquired is through on-the-job experiences and hands-on learning. Right. So what is the need for hands-on learning experiences? Because you want your learners to adapt to rapid digital transformation. And of course, you want to reduce the time to competency, right? Because you might be in an industry where there's attrition, you're constantly hiring and onboarding new folks, or you're in a company where there's new technology that's getting introduced. And even for tenured users, you need to keep training them in new technology. And of course, you're always looking at minimizing your costs. Some of these is why there's a need for hands-on learning experiences in today's day and age. So that's what I'm here to talk about. How do you deliver effective learning experiences and measure impact? Right. So I do want to talk about some solution sets there and some tools that you can deploy. It starts with, I did want to talk about, hands-on learning experiences through simulation training. And I think it's a safe assumption that a lot of you in the audience today have, at some point in time, if not right now, built hands-on training programs for your software application users. And the next piece is about how do you make sure you're reinforcing knowledge and providing learning in the flow of work. That's the adoption piece there. And of course, how do you measure the impact of your learning programs through analytics and through certain other tools? Okay, right. So the first piece, of course, is about hands-on learning experiences. How do you actually accelerate time to proficiency of your learners even before they start doing their work on live applications in their work environment? Now, before we move ahead, just another poll. This time I want to understand how many of you are or currently have hands-on training as a part of your software training strategy today. It's just simple yes, no. Is hands-on training a part of your software training strategy today? Are you building any kind of hands-on learning programs? Because we talk to a lot of people who leverage IT-owned sandboxes for hands-on training programs. And of course, there's a bunch of traditional simulation tools out there which you're using for hands-on training. That's very encouraging. 70% of you are saying that have said yes, that hands-on training is part of your software training strategy today. 20% have said no. 10% have said I don't know. Okay, understandable. Let's move ahead, right? Okay, I had it on the slide as well. Apologies. Right. So, like I said, now a lot of our customers and partners we talk to, historically, like I said, there's a couple of alternatives which you might be using. Please feel free to talk about it in the chat as well. One is, I presume you would be using a lower instance of the application itself. Maybe you're borrowing a sandbox instance from your IT department, or you might have a demo instance of the application which might be using for training purposes. And of course, there would be limitations in terms of, the IT-owned sandbox not even being available for training purposes because IT priorities are, of course, different. And then there's the overhead of populating or building test data or training data for users to consume while they are training. And then after users have used them for training, now you have a ton of garbage data to clean up in your databases. There's so much more overhead effort that comes with using these lower instances or IT sandboxes for training purposes, right? And then there is the traditional simulation tools. I'm sure all of you might have used a Captivate or a Storyline or any other tool for simulation purposes. And while they're great tools, there's no denying that. But there is that effort in terms of content creation and more importantly, maintenance, right? Having talked about how software is evolving so quickly these days. Maintaining your training content, updating your training content so that it stays relevant and it stays useful for your software users is going to be a challenge. Now, what if you could become self-sufficient, right? What if you had not have to rely on IT anymore? What if you could build and maintain your own safe, always available training environments, which L&D folks, as such as yourself, can control yourself without any coding knowledge, without having to depend on IT sandboxes anymore. And this way, everything is in your control. You can build, you can maintain in a very easy way, and all the while fully eliminating the risks of using live systems for training purposes, right? And yet provide a completely immersive and interactive practice environment for your learners. And also, you had a mechanism to track their progress through training, find out who's learned, who's not, where are they finding it difficult, or what if we had real-time analytics to track all of this and also perform assessments to find out if they're proficient, if they've familiarized themselves with the processes, and you can perform knowledge checks before you actually graduate your learners onto the live applications, right? I think we have about 2 minutes. All right. So quickly, if you could, I'm just showcasing here some GIFs, or we could, if we had time, we could have done some demos as well. If you could actually, with a very easy to use tools, build simulations of your applications, and then of course provide all of the necessary step-by-step guidance and instructions for your learners so that you provide a holistic training experience for them. Essentially have a tool where just by clicking you're building that entire simulation, and then you're slapping onto it all of the necessary guidance and the recommendations and the notifications that they need to undergo training using that environment. And of course, you would like to not expose certain sensitive information to your learners. So very easily being able to edit these simulations to protect PII information or any other confidential data before you expose to your end users. And the key part that we're here to talk about today, in real time, you'll be able to track how your users are progressing through your training programs at even to the level of, to the depth of, at for each process, how many users are starting off, how many are completing it, where are they dropping off, how much time are they taking, what kind of information are they accessing, where are the gaps there. You'll be able to identify those gaps also. That's the application simulation tool that's part of this solution. Moving forward, you've trained your users, you help them gain proficiency, let's say in key processes, you've performed a knowledge check, you've graduated them onto their live application, right? Now, of course, they're going to forget what they learned. More often than not, people tend to forget what they learned. Now, the next piece of this puzzle is, how do you continue that journey? How do you make sure in their live environments, in their live applications, how do you make sure they're providing all of the necessary just-in-time knowledge delivery, right? And contextual support for these learners so that you're reinforcing that knowledge so that they become that much more productive in their work. And that's how you're actually making sure knowledge is translating to performance, right? So quick poll. I promise this is the last poll of today's session. What I want to understand was how many of you in the audience today has heard of the term digital adoption platform? you're either aware of what it is and what it does, or you've heard of this term somewhere, but you're not quite sure what it helps with. And there could be folks there who's never heard of what a DAP is. Right. Okay, that's consistent with what we say otherwise as well. 1/3 of you have 33% of the audience today has either heard of a DAP and know what it does also. Some of you have heard of it but do not know what it does. A lot of you have not heard of a digital adoption platform. That's completely fine. Okay, quickly, what is a digital adoption platform? Okay. Now, in the most simplest of terms, this is essentially an experience layer, if I could call it that, that will sit on top of any software application through which you as a trainer, as an L&D practitioner, or as an application owner can provide all of the necessary guidance, information discovery, support for your learners in the live application, right? So let's say there's these applications, right? There could be employee-facing applications. There also could be customer-facing applications. There could be folks out there in the audience today who are building and deploying training programs for your end customers also, right? There could be those kinds of applications as well. And these could be browser-based, these could be mobile-based, these could be desktop applications. And at the other end of the spectrum, you have your users. Now, these, when we say users, what we mean is these could be your internal employees, this could be your customers, and this could be your product leaders as well. Now, what a digital adoption platform is, like I said, this is the bridge that's connecting your technology and your users. This is that bridge that essentially is making your technology more usable for your users. And how it is doing that is essentially through on-the-job learning, right? So with real-time guidance and information discovery, like I said, contextual support, recommendations and nudges, and of course, there's the analytics piece there, which will help you understand what kind of information are your learners engaging with, what are they looking for through search term analysis, and what are the most common processes are they executing, and then you can find out if you have training material for those processes, and you can always fill in the gaps in real time. And this is all about ensuring that your learners, after the first initial training that they've had within the live application, how are you making sure that they have all of the knowledge and support that they need without having to move away from their work environment, right? That essentially is what a digital adoption platform solves for. You could, all of this, you can do that. You can onboard your users onto your application. You can have these mini LMSs, these task lists within the application where you can nudge them to perform certain tasks, take them on these tours of the application, and you can also provide real-time step-by-step guidance for them to execute their processes. And the thing I like about most in this tool is this self-help thing, this small widget window that you can put up within the application where they can ask questions and get answers. And there's AI in it now as well. They can get summarized answers without having to go and read through knowledge bases. And then from here, they can trigger those step-by-step instructions. And all of this, imagine you have a lot of knowledge content already, right? You have your knowledge repositories, you have your LMSs, and you can make all of that content that you've already developed available for your learners within these applications through these self-help widgets, right? Through some integrations, technical details that you don't want to get into. I could, if I'm a learner today, I'm on a certain application and I am trying to execute a process and I'm stuck, right? Typically, what I would do is I would tap on the shoulder of a colleague, or I would go to my support desk and I would raise a query, or I would go watch a video or read through a PDF and come back and execute that. But what if I just had a quick window there. I can go ask a question, get an answer right there, or I could get a walkthrough there that actually will guide me through how to execute that process on the application, right? So that's what that does. So by doing this again and again, I'm getting myself familiarized with that process, and I'm becoming that much more proficient and productive in my work without spending time on finding information. And again, the measurement piece, right? Again, in real time, you're able to analyze and get very deep insights into what are the processes that your learners are executing in their application. And that will help you go back and optimize your one-time training programs and also fill in the gaps in real time, right? Where are the friction points? Where do they need the most help? Is my training content solving for these problems? Where are the gaps in my training content? So essentially, you're being real with your users and making sure they have, you're equipping them with all of the knowledge and support that they need to do their work in a very effective and productive manner. Okay, we have about 9 minutes. I'm just going to quickly talk about a couple of customer stories and then stop so that we can take the questions that we have. So first is about this insurance company called Sentry. Sentry deployed this solution that I talked about so far in their Guidewire application and their Workday application, where they are training users on the job. They're providing all of these capabilities that I spoke about, and they've seen some great results there. Sentry actually we have like a great testimony from Sentry where they talk about how they've saved close to $1 million in terms of the time and the cost that they've saved in the time of content development time, designing training programs, and how they've reduced what they call L1 support queries, right? Support queries, L1 support queries essentially mean that within Guidewire or Workday, I'm a user and I don't know how to execute something. So I'm just going to raise a support ticket. How they've made their end users so much more self-sufficient through hands-on training and through on-the-job learning experiences. They've saved a ton of costs there. They've made their end users so much more self-sufficient, and for the trainers as well, they've reduced the time taken to create and maintain training content. So that's a Sentry story there, and a very similar story with Experian. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Experian as well. They are information services. They provide analytics tools to large enterprises. And here it's about Salesforce, right? Sales Experian was migrating to Salesforce Lightning when we started working with them. And again, it's a very similar story there in terms of improving end user adoption of Salesforce Lightning, making end users so much more self-sufficient and productive with, again, on-the-job learning and immediate information discovery. In the interest of time, I think we have about 7 minutes. I'm going to stop there and open the floor for questions. I did see a few questions and comments popping up on chat. So Liz, I think we can take some questions
Yeah.
from now. Okay.
Yeah, there are some really good ones. So one was, I've seen a divide between L&D teams and stakeholders on this step. I'm not completely sure what step they were referring to. Who's responsible for the reinforcement of learning? Once we train, is the L&D team the one who should be doing the follow-up, or is that on leadership?
Yep, that's a great question. And I do not have a clear-cut answer there because, okay, what we see is, of course, L&D, in many organizations, L&D is involved right at the beginning. Let's say training a new user or when there is a new application that's being launched, that then there's like this training programs, change management programs where L&D gets involved in. Now, once they've moved on to the live application, then usually I think it's a very collaborative effort. There needs to be a feedback loop between application owners and leadership back to L&D saying that what's working, what's not working. And there's a little bit of onus that lies on L&D as well. I think that's where the gap is, where you can't be looking at training as a one time with an event mindset anymore, right? It needs to be a continuous mechanism where there needs to be a feedback loop between L&D and the business, where we're getting real-time feedback in terms of how users are performing, where the gaps are, and how do you continuously optimizing your learning programs. I don't know if that helped. It's not, I don't think the responsibility lies with one stakeholder anymore. It definitely has to be a much more collaborative effort. But I do appreciate the gap there, and some of the solutions that I spoke about tries to solve that problem and bridge that gap.
No, that was a great answer. Joy had another question. We are currently using DAP, but have been unable to use it for simulations within our system because our interaction with accounts in our in-house system changes the account. So there is no way to do a simulation using the same account over and over. Is there something that Whatfix can address?
Yes, absolutely. I was very cautious about not coming here and selling Whatfix products. A DAP is the Whatfix flagship solution, and I'm sure there are other tools out there as well. Very recently, and that's why I was talking about application simulation, that we recently launched a new product. We call it, we're very proud of the name, we call it Mirror. Now, essentially, Mirror, it's not a digital adoption platform, it's a completely different product line with which L&D folks, we have a bunch of customers who are already using Mirror to build simulations which are extreme, which would just look just like your real application, but it is not. But yet you can make it fully interactive for your end users, and you can provide that completely immersive experience for them where they can practice, make mistakes without the fear of affecting anything in the live application, get proficient, and then you can graduate them onto the live application, where DAP actually takes over and provides all of the necessary just-in-time guidance and support. It's a beautiful journey for learners where you train them with Mirror, get them proficient, at least with the key processes, and then push them onto the live environment where DAP takes care of everything else to make sure data accuracy, compliance, self-sufficiency, automation to help with productivity, all of that is in place. You should go back and check out Mirror. You could always go to whatfix.com or reach out to us. We'd love to show you what the product is and what it can do for you.
Beautiful. And there was another question. I'm going to try to say it right. A lot of big words. If a trainer finds it difficult to qualitatively and quantitatively measure training ROI, can training software or system qualitatively and quantitatively measure training ROI? Are these the same thing?
They are qualitative and quantitative stuff. Of course, they're not the same thing. There's a few. Look, quantitatively, we see a lot of our customers measuring certain metrics. Now, of course, it's not going to be the same everywhere. It depends on what your key objectives are. And now this could be from the learner side, this could be how much more self-sufficient they are. And you could measure that by, of course, by the support volume, the support tickets that they raise. There's always a before and after. What is the volume of support tickets before you've launched a training program, and has that come down after you've launched it? That's one metric a lot of our customers track, because that essentially tells you, okay, they've trained, now do they know what they're doing? Because if they don't know what they're doing still, then they're going to be raising support tickets. So if that has come down, that's a clear indicator that you've empowered them. They're much more self-sufficient right now. From the author side, from the training team's perspective, how much time is it taking you to build training content? How much time are you spending in maintaining, in updating your training content? How easy it is to build training content? And how easy it is to collaborate with your peers. These are some of the metrics that we track among our customers. And of course, the qualitative stuff where you can always, there's capabilities to launch surveys and get feedback from your learners as well.
Beautiful. And I think that's all we have time left for questions. So before we kind of take it away and lead others to the next session, is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience today?
Oh yes, thanks for joining today. Hope this was useful. If there could have been one thing that you took away from this 45 minutes, I think that's a great success for me personally. And like I said, we would have loved to discuss more. Please reach out to us. You can always go to the Whatfix website, sign up for product demos there. We'd love to showcase some of the things that I got a chance to talk to you about today. We love talking to L&D folks, finding out new problems and figuring out ways to solve those problems for them. So and please reach out to us, and thanks for being a great audience today.
Thank you so much, Sean. It was a great question. Okay, I wanted to make sure there was no other question. Thank you so much. No, this was a great session, and I appreciate you so much. For
Thanks, Liz.
everyone, yeah, of course. For everyone else who is still on the call, we will be taking that 15-minute break as promised. For our last session, we have Paul from Biz Library for their session From Strategy to Impact, How to Prioritize Goals and Measure What Matters. So again, in a moment, I'm going to end this session. You can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and going to the session tab. I hope you stick around for our last session, which will begin at the top of the hour. See you soon, everybody.